Happy heavenly birthday, Hot Rod. I have my own special memories. I was on his first podcast, which is why it's not findable. And I asked him about an incident at the Providence Civic Center where they wouldn't let Kitty and Anastasia in. And his reaction to this, he was dumbfounded at how I knew it. And he talked about it. And in fact, the following week, him and his co-host were talking about me and how I knew that story. It was so cool. And he was kind. He was fatherly. I'm just really blessed, because I started to cry, and he said, "Oh, don't cry." He was one of the sweetest, kindest human beings that I've ever had the pleasure of talking to. What's asleep? Sorry. And I'm so blessed that I got to. It all started. Facebook groups were a little different years ago. You had administrators and officers. Officers were like moderators. Now they have moderators. But the officers used to be listed on the side. And I was one of the officers on his official page, which was run by, I think she was his publicist. She was something like that. Noelle. And she made me an officer because I knew a lot, because of, my special bond, because we both had lymphoma, Roddy and I. And I had talked to someone a couple of years before and said, I just want to tell Roddy I've been there. I had what he had, and the person promised me, and I never heard a thing. So when I found that group, I talked to Noelle. Noelle said, you'll get your picture. I got my picture, as you saw on my wall. I posted a picture of it in the group, and I thanked him for it, and she said, thank Kitty too. She's the one who mailed it. And Kitty's actually my friend on Facebook, as is Ariel, who, if you look at the picture, is one of the two little girls with her dad that he's holding up in the black and white picture. It's Ariel and Anastasia. The two oldest girls. The day I talked to him on his podcast, I also talked to Colt. Like I said, Kitty's my friend on Facebook. We have talked. Roddy has talked to me on Twitter when he was still alive. Obviously. And I actually totally missed it. I was in my notifications. In my original Twitter, that my kidmissing Twitter, and it said, and he had replied to me. He had said, "God bless you for your work, dude," or something like that. I'm not a dude, but okay. He didn't know, with the missing and stuff, because I knew he cared about kids. And he has a huge heart, so I knew that's something that he would have appreciated. So I tagged him. He responded, so that's so cool. I actually responded a couple of times, I believe, to things. I truly appreciate him and his kindness, his big heart. And from a wrestling perspective, first of all, I think he's a phenomenal actor. Check out, if you can find it, his episode of Walker, Texas Ranger. Wow. Definitely check that out. That's for another video. Because it's phenomenal. Excuse me. Excuse me. It's probably one of the best examples of his acting. So definitely check that out. Now, trying to think. Now, from a wrestling perspective, Roddy was an award-winning amateur wrestler, as well as boxer. He played every sport he could get his hands on at school. In spite of his story, he did graduate, although he still was estranged from his family afterwards. But he did graduate. He played, like he said, every sport he could get his hands on. And he loved it. I guess he was particularly good at basketball. I don't know if he really played football. He might have. I don't think he played hockey. I think primarily he played basketball. I could be wrong. Nope, he played baseball too in school. And so he and I say hockey because remember he's from Canada. He was born in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, although his ancestry is Scots-Irish. Almost pure Scots-Irish. Thus the brown red hair like I have, although over the years mine has I wish you could still see my natural red highlights. You can a little bit, but yeah, that color. Anyway, that's his color right there. It's kind of funny. So we have that in common too. Our very Scots-Irish ancestry. You know, and Roddy's been very open about stuff. Like if you listen to his old podcasts, stuff he didn't have to be open about. You know, talking about being 5 years old, living on an Indian reservation, the Paw, Manitoba, spelled P-A-S, and being the only white kid there, because his father was a policeman, and he assigned to the Paw, and he and his little neighbor girl were in kindergarten. They would walk home together, and they fell in the creek or something, or in the lake or something. They ended up soaking wet, so they ran into her garage, which was warm, and took their wet clothes off and were trying to dry them. They were 5. You know, there was nothing remotely sexual, but her mother flipped out and said he was trying to rape her or something, and and called the police, and guess who the only policeman in town was? Daddy! So yeah, that went over really, really well with Stanley Toombs, as you can imagine. I can't get this side over. This way. Isn't that awful? I can't do this on camera. Anyway, yeah, so that went over well with Mr. Toombs, as you can imagine. But, to be that vulnerable to tell that story, and I've heard Roddy cry, and it really ticked me off. Right before he died, he lost Podcast One as his podcast format. And he lost his Legends contract. He had lost everything right before he died. And the reason was Steve Austin. He did a joke interview with an impressionist pretending to be Steve Austin. He said, in no way, first of all, was I trying to insult Steve. And second, everyone knew it wasn't Steve. In other words, Steve Austin needed to grow a sense of humor. But he went crying to Podcast One, and Podcast One kicked Roddy off. He went crying to Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon took away Roddy's Legends contract. Yeah, it was terrible. I attributed all of that stress to contributing to the heart attack that he had when he died. There's the last interview that he did. Some local talk show. I'm gonna have to look for it. I'll link it in the description if I can find it. He was beyond confused. There was definitely a lack of blood flow. It was right after that he died, and even Kitty had said we had a cardiologist appointment the next day, but he just never made it. Because we knew something was wrong. I think Roddy attributed issues with his mental faculties with brain injury, head injury. Losing his train of thought for no apparent reason. What was the other thing? He was losing his train of thought. Oh, stuttering. He did have a mild tremor. But he attributed these things to brain injury from getting bopped on the head so many times in the ring. And I'm sure that didn't help with some of that stuff. But things got a whole lot worse at the end. And even his kids said, as horrible as it was to lose him so young, we know that it was better for him in a way, because we know that in a few years he would have been in a wheelchair, and that alone would have killed him, to be in a wheelchair. But they knew, the physical condition of both of his hips. Even though he had one replaced, he needed to have the other one replaced. He just hadn't done it. His knees weren't great. His back, his neck, they were all bad. And he'd had his broken neck fixed. I bet he had the amazing surgeons that worked on him on his podcast to talk about what they did. In fact, it was a back surgery that led to the finding of the tumor for his non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which, thank the good Lord, because he'd have been dead a whole lot sooner. Because non-Hodgkin's is very difficult to treat in comparison to Hodgkin's, which is what I had. Fortunately, they found that lymph node when they were doing the back surgery. It was a lymph node kind of behind his stomach. And the doctor said, that just doesn't look right. So while I'm in here putting his back together, I'm going to pull that lymph node because I don't like the way it looks. He didn't have to do that. He could have just referred him to another doctor to have that done. You know, it wasn't part of his surgery, but he just really didn't like it. And was concerned enough to remove it and send it off for pathology. It came back non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Fortunately, it was stage 1 because that doctor took action. Roddy was forever grateful to that surgeon for taking action. He said, in fact, the next day, I was in my hospital bed. My family had come to see me, and they were down the hall visiting my wife's grandmother, great-grandma, who happened to be right down the hall from me. Well, while they were visiting great-grandma, doctor came in and told me I had cancer. I'm like, whoa, don't leave me here all night thinking, you know, can you give me something to help me sleep tonight till you come back tomorrow with a better idea of what we're doing. And so they did. They ordered a sedative for him for bedtime. And while Kitty and the kids were down with great-grandma passed away. So they came back, they're all in tears. And he's like, oh my gosh, how can I tell them now that I have cancer when they've just held great-grandma's hand and watched her die? This is just terrific. So he waited till the next day, till he got all the information. Then he talked to his family. Great-grandma was very, very old, as you can imagine. I mean, it was Kitty's grandmother. But still, that's horrible. Mrs. Dittrich, Kitty's mother, is still alive. I don't know about her dad, but her mother's still alive, because you'll see pictures of her mom and pictures of Kitty and the girls, because Kitty's very close to her mom. But yeah, that was Roddy's luck. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing at the irony. You know, you find out you have cancer and you want to tell your family, but your family comes back, oh, great-grandma died down the hall. What? You know, that kind of thing. So, I had my porta cath put in on my father's birthday. And I told my father, I said, I'm so sorry. I'm in the hospital on your birthday and I'm having surgery. There are a lot better things you could be doing on your birthday than sitting here. He said, I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. That's a parent, you know, who loves his child. And so, and my mother said the same thing. He wouldn't want to be anything else. I just felt bad because of his birthday, you know. And trying to make that go down. Oh, I see what it is. My to-do list book is sitting in here. So yeah. Again, the opinions expressed herein are mine and mine alone. I have been very fortunate to get to know Roddy a little bit, to become friends with Ariel, with Kitty, you know, over Facebook. Very blessed. I know that. Excuse the street noise, the window's open. So yeah. Excuse me. the good Lord to thank for that, and I thank him that Roddy was a believer, so someday I'll meet him in person. You know, I hope you like the poster. It says Happy Heavenly Birthday in the middle, as you can see, and I put pictures of him at different times in his life. I found like a red and black and sort of a plaid. Not quite his tartan, but it's close. And I thought it looked great. Excuse me. If you want a closer look at it, I will be posting the poster on Facebook and Instagram at Jericho Girly, not at Kid Missing's Instagram. The Kid Missing video, I believe, is finished, so I just have to tell it to publish. Thank you for joining me. God bless you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. When I come back, I am going to be doing the cooking. Then we'll do the genealogy. I said in the other one that we're going to play with the new games, but actually we're going to do genealogy instead. I'm going to show you how I basically process this paperwork. How I go in here and I say, okay, is this information in the computer? If it is, bye-bye. And, excuse me. So, that's the plan. Excuse me. I will pay for that. Bye, guys. Please subscribe if you are new, and check and make sure you're subscribed if you're not. And hit that bell. It's all free, and you can customize.